welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 2615B, and today's date is October 31st, 2021, and the title of the episode is, This is the Tip of the Iceberg. The call for election decertification is getting louder. Let's get into the economic collapse, political, and geopolitical news. Now, the deep state, the invisible enemy, big tech, fake news, corrupt politicians, they are panicking. The call to decertify the elections is growing louder and louder and louder. And now we see out in Wisconsin with Arizona, Brnovich has the case. We're going to start to see things move. I do believe once Brnovich comes out and makes the first prosecution, arrests the first individual, I think at that time the legislature will have no choice but to start to decertify the elections. Because if Brnovich, or when Brnovich makes his move and shows that there's fraud, there was problems with the election, it wasn't secure, it wasn't transparent, and there are anomalies with all these votes, at that point, something will have to be done. And what we're seeing happen right now is not just one state now. We have two states that are now saying we must decertify because of what we're seeing, what the sheriff's office found in Wisconsin. And yes, this is going to get worse. If you notice how it's playing out, it's building over time. And then there'll be another state like Pennsylvania. Then there'll be another state like Georgia. Then there'll be another state. And soon, just like what Wendy Rogers is doing, she's trying to get every single state on board to have a forensic audit. And this is going to show that the elections, they were never secure, they were never transparent, they were never honest. Remember, Trump, the entire mission here is not just to get reelected, it's to expose the entire swamp, their system, and how they cheat. And remember, there's different levels of people. There are the foot soldiers like Antifa. Then you have middle level like the corrupt politicians. Then above that, you have the invisible enemy, the people hide behind the curtain. Above that, you have the central bank all the way up to the Rothschilds. Remember, their entire mission right now is to take over this country and the rest of the world. That's really what they're trying to do. That's what the Great Reset is. And who's standing in their way? Trump and the people now that are behind him. He created an army of people who are looking for the truth, an army of people who want freedom, an army of people who will not comply, an army of people who have been brought together on a grassroots level that are now more powerful than they could ever imagine. This is why they are panicking, and it is growing worldwide. I mean, let's think about this for a second. Let's Go Brandon really meant F. Joe Biden. The fake news, they tried to cover it up. They tried to create fake stories saying, oh no, this didn't exist. This is really something else. Don't look over here. Now they admitted that yes, it's Let's Go Brandon, F. Joe Biden. And this is spreading worldwide, not just here in the U.S. It's out in Germany. People out there are chanting it. We have it out in Australia. In the parliament, people are protesting outside the Parliament of Victoria. They're chanting, let's go Brandon. It is spreading all over the place. And remember, this was done on a grassroots level. There was no marketing campaign. It wasn't trillions and trillions of dollars trying to push this out there. It wasn't Twitter, Facebook, YouTube promoting it day after day. Actually, the opposite was happening. They were censoring it day after day. They were lying about what it really meant. They were trying to cover it up. The rapper, Bryson Gray, who created the song, he was banned, and this is still growing. That tells you how powerful the people are. Because it wouldn't get this big if the people didn't care, if the people weren't awake. Now, Dan Scavino, he put this out on Twitter. He's holding up a menu. There's a picture there. It says, Brandon's menu for breakfast. Now that's very interesting. Now this was put out at 10:48. So if we go back to 10:48, this is April 6, 2018, and it says, "We have everything. They know we do." Yes, they're panicking right now. Now, what's very interesting when we look at Let's Go Brandon, when we look at everything here, I think Makala on Twitter just summed it all up. The difference between the Trump hate and the Biden hate is that the Trump hate was manufactured by the media. The Biden hate is authentic by the people. That is the difference. When they created the Trump hate during the 2016 presidential election, then during Trump's presidential election, then during the 2020 presidential election, it was a small group, the invisible enemy and their bullhorn, which was the media. They're the ones who created the Trump hate. It wasn't the people. Now, this F. Joe Biden, Let's Go Brandon, it's not the media. The media is trying to cover it up. They don't want this out there. The minority can't control the majority. Think about it for a sec. Who's more powerful? The majority. Now, we can see that the minority, and I'm talking about the invisible enemy, the corrupt politicians, the private Western Central Bank, it's a small group of elite people, and of course they're foot soldiers. Remember, there's different levels. They're the ones who are trying to push the main agenda. Now, they're having the illegals come into this country. They want as many as possible. If you notice, why are they bringing in children? Yes, there's many different agendas with this, with crimes against humanity, but why would they bring in so many children? If you want to reshape a country, how do you do it? Do you try to teach the children here in this country who have parents? And the parents take a look at this and say, hey, I don't like what you're learning here. I don't like this one bit. We're going to step in. Actually, that's what the American parents are doing. Black, white, Asian, doesn't make a difference. They don't like what they're seeing. So they're going up against the school board. Actually, the deep state players, they don't like that the American family is going up, the parents are going up against the school board because they have a different agenda. So how do you reshape a country? You bring in as many children as possible. Then what do you do? Well, if you have millions and millions of children and you need to reshape the country, you need to teach them, don't you? You need to teach them what? Critical race theory. You need to teach them, the 1619 Project. You need to teach them everything, the opposite of what America was actually built upon. So what are they doing right now? Well, they're taking those children and now they're putting them into schools. In New York, in Long Island, thousands of unaccompanied immigrant minors, they are now being brought into the school system. And this is going to happen throughout the country. So this is their plan. Because how do you reshape the country? You have to teach the young. They're having a problem with the American children because the parents are in the way. See how this works? Yes, there's many different agendas with this, but you can see, and this is why they wanted Common Core. Common Core doesn't make our children smarter. It dumbs them down. It sounded great. It sounded incredible. I go, oh yes, Common Core, we need this for the country. But then people started to realize, wait a minute, how are you teaching math? Wait, you're rewriting the Bill of Rights? Something doesn't make sense here. But think about the children that are coming into this country. What are they going to teach them? Well, they're going to teach them what they want, to mold them and shape them for the new country. That's what the deep state has always had planned. But now, you can see it. Why? Because their plan is accelerated. Why do you think Trump removed himself from the picture, let the residents step in? Because he knew the borders were going to be opened up and people were going to be coming in. Can you see it clearly now? You see, when people mentioned this back in 2013, 2014, 2015, no one believed it. No, that's ridiculous. That doesn't make sense. Now, go look at the border. Can you see it? You can see it very, very clearly. Actually, you don't have to explain it to people anymore. People can just see it. Yes, you might want to give them the details, but people can see it very, very clearly. Now, out in Texas, it looks like the governor there, Governor Abbott, he is continually building the border wall, and he says it's going to be complete in 2 months. Fantastic. This is going to show everyone, hey, look, we built a wall and it works. We were able to stop all these people. We have no people coming in via Texas. Everyone's coming in through Arizona now. Maybe we should build a wall there. throughout the entire state. Maybe we should go all the way up to California. See, people are going to start to realize this. They're going to start to see it firsthand. Now, what's very interesting is that we know the COP26, this is the climate summit, it is being held right now. And remember, they're very worried about CO2, they're very worried about fossil fuels, but they all flew in there on their private jets. They didn't even take commercial, to save on CO2 and all that. Instead, they took 400 private jets, and they're going to go to this area for the World Economic Forum Climate Summit. Does that make any sense? No. Why didn't they take an electric car? Why didn't they take a boat where they could, or an electric train where they could? Why didn't they take a commercial plane so they can limit the amount of pollution and the use of fuel? Because they always do the opposite of what they're telling you. They know this is not a problem. They know it's no big deal, but they're trying to convince the population. Are people now still believing? No, people are pushing back. Why do you think Trump removed us from the Paris Climate Accord? Because he knew this had nothing to do with the climate. It had nothing to do with global warming. It was all a hoax, just like the pandemic. Just like everything else that we've seen. Every single piece of their agenda was always the same exact thing. Remove the rights of the people. Remove the freedom of the people here in the United States. And bring them into where we want them to go. This is why we had 9/11. This is why we had the Patriot Act. This is why we have the pandemic. This is why we've seen so many mass shootings. They've been trying over and over. And with each one of these, they hit the different rights. Like the Second Amendment. Like the freedom of speech. You're seeing censorship. Like the right to not have your person or your house searched. Think about it. At each level, they were trying to hit each one of our rights. And how did they do this? Through a false flag and fear. That's what they did. Now, what's very interesting with Afghanistan, we know this was a complete mess. Trump continually points it out. We continually point it out. But something very interesting happened in Afghanistan. The Special Inspector General for Afghanistan Reconstruction, Sagar, said that after Kabul fell to the Taliban, he was pressured by the State Department to redact information from Sagar reports. Since 2008, Sagar has documented the corruption and waste involved in Washington's failed nation-building project in Afghanistan. And Sagar Chief John Sopko said that the annual Military Reporters and Editors Association conference, that the State Department asked him to temporarily suspend access to all audit, inspection, and financial audit reports. Now that is very interesting. What are they hiding? I think we all know. Now, we also know with this pandemic that they've been trying to convince us that, hey, this all started in the wet market in China. It was from bats. And anyone who disagreed with that, you were censored. Well, we've come to find out that's not true. We've come to find out, with a lot of documentation, Fauci was involved. Gain of function came from the Wuhan lab. And now we have Reuters saying something very interesting. But let me just read what Glenn Greenwald said first. Just 6 months ago, the official position was that the origins of COVID were not just known, but were proven with so much certainty that no debate or questioning of it could be permitted and had to be banned from the internet, which it was. Now we have this. U.S. spy agencies say origins of COVID-19 may never be known. I thought they knew. I thought it was from the wet market. Let me translate. Crap, we were caught. They know it's not from the wet market. We can't admit yet it came from Wuhan because China's breathing down our backs. Biden is saying don't let people know. Fauci's trying to cover it up. But sooner or later, the truth is going to come out, and we're all going to realize, and the documentation we already have shows that we were attacked. This is why Trump said it. We were attacked with a biological weapon. Actually, the interview I did with Dr. Zelenko, it was a coordinated global bio attack on the planet. That's what it was. Now, what's very interesting with Fauci, we know that he was torturing animals, puppies, and he was studying them, and as people started to look on, PETA said, oh, he should absolutely resign from this. Actually, there should be military trials with Fauci. They started to scrub all this information from the National Institutes of Health, and they started to get rid of all this information. So they're pretending that it doesn't exist. We've seen this before. This is nothing new. Now, what's very interesting is that all the leaders, well, I should say the fake leaders, are heading towards the climate meeting, and they're being filmed walking into the meeting that they're going to have. Now, what's very interesting, they get out of the car, and there's a video of this. General Flynn put this up. They get out of the car, and as soon as they're out of the car, they put their mask on. Then they walk past the soldiers that all have masks. As soon as they get inside, they remove their mask. This is completely fake. Then they had a photo op. We had Boris Johnson and the rest all standing there with their masks on. And then as soon as the photo op was over, they said, okay, you can take your masks off. So this is just for show, which we knew from the beginning. So is this really about a virus, a deadly virus, or is it about something else? I think we're all starting to figure it. I think we knew this from the beginning, but a lot more people are starting to figure this out. General Flynn put this out on Telegram. All fake, not about health, all about control. Quit trying to fool the masses with your false and deceptive actions, and quit pretending like we don't know. We do. Our health choices are ours to make. The pandemic is false. Yes, COVID-19 exists, but the effects and current conditions are grossly exaggerated to control societal behavior. Sorry, not having it this Sunday. I'll pray for you instead. He's absolutely right. And the people are pushing back. They're not complying. Yes, it might seem dark right now, because when you don't comply with something, it's not like, oh, okay, you don't want to wear your mask. Oh, you want to keep your job, not gonna. No, when you don't comply, that means the other side tries to push as hard as they can to make it difficult for you. That's what non-complying means. Think about the Revolutionary War. When the British came ashore and they said, listen, we want your weapons. What happened? The colonist says, we do not comply. You cannot take our weapons. Did the British just say, oh, damn, okay, we're going to leave that, thank you? Or did someone shoot someone? And then did a war break out? See, that's what happens when you don't comply. The same thing's happening now with people losing their jobs. I know it's terrible, it's awful. This should never, ever happen. But when you don't comply, the other side doesn't like it. So they're going to force you to comply. Just like the British were forcing the colonists to comply. You're not going to comply? Then we're going to come down on you with thousands upon thousands of troops. And we will burn, pillage, destroy, kill your families. And then you will comply. This is what they're doing. Maybe not in those terms. The only thing they can do now is to force you to beg for your job. What, you want income? Then do what we say. If not, you'll have no job. This is what's happening right now. That's what it means. This is why there's this uncomfortable feeling. Now, since people are not complying, we see in many places businesses are losing employees, like out in New York, because we know that goes into effect tomorrow. 26 New York City firehouses are going to be closed due to vaccine mandate, which means when there are fires, who's going to be coming to put them out? This is going to be a complete and utter disaster. Who's responsible for this? Well, this is going to be the mayor. Everyone's going to be looking to him. Look what you're doing here. This is ridiculous. This makes no sense. You're saying it's for our safety, but we have people trapped in a building. The building's coming down. Nobody's here to put it out. It's spreading to other buildings. So this has nothing to do with safety anymore. You lost that narrative. Look at American Airlines. Same thing happened with Southwestern. More cancellations. Of course, they're blaming it on the weather. About 1,500 flights were canceled. Why? Because when people are pushed out saying, I am not getting vaccinated, they don't have the employees, they don't have the pilots, they don't have the stewardesses, they don't have all these people to maintain the airlines, the mechanics, you name it. And they can't do anything. This has nothing to do with the virus anymore. This is about control and their push. And we know that the World Economic Forum was behind this. We know that this has been the push, and it's backfiring on them. Look Look, Southwestern already said, listen, we can't do this right now. We thought people were going to just comply. American Airlines, they're going to back off too. We thought people were just going to comply. Let's see how long it takes de Blasio to say, okay, you know what? Maybe we'll work this a different way. Because when crime goes up, fires are raging throughout the city, it's going to be a problem. And when things aren't getting done, it's going to be awful. What about when garbage is left all over the streets? Nobody's picking it up. Actually, they already have that problem. But Klaus Schwab, he came out and he said the following, this is from Election Wizard. As long as not everybody is vaccinated, nobody will be safe. Translation, we will keep this up until you do what we say, because we need to bring you into the Great Reset. Remember, our main goal here, and we wrote it down, it's about depopulation. We need to depopulate the world. And if you don't do what we want, you will never, ever be safe. That's really what he's saying. So, to convince everyone to get the vaccine because it's not going their way, this tells you everything you need to know, because they keep pushing. They keep threatening. They keep saying you won't get paid. You won't be safe. So the CDC said, okay, we got a great idea. Let's come out with a report that says vaccines offer better protection than previous COVID-19 infection. That natural immunity, that sucks. The vaccine is the best thing ever. So they put this paper out there thinking people were just going to go, oh, look, oh my God, they did a study. You see, it is the vaccine. It's so much better. Well, remember, when you put out a study, it needs to be peer-reviewed. If it's not peer-reviewed, it's junk science. That's what that means. So anytime Fauci, CDC, WHO, FDA, you name it, if it's not peer-reviewed, it's garbage. Thomas Massey put this out on Twitter. What do roadkill and a CDC-sponsored COVID paper have in common? By the third day, they're so picked apart, they're unrecognizable. The CDC director is shameless for fabricating junk science with findings that stand in stark contrast to every credible academic study. CDC uses this paper to make the absurd, never-before-claimed, and already unproven assertion that the vaccine is 5 times more effective than natural immunity at preventing people from testing positive for COVID. Testing, not symptoms, death, or hospitalization. Testing. Let's start with one obvious flaw with the authors recognize but gloss over. Most of the few cases they characterize as reinfections are probably long COVID. They made no effort to verify recovery or that the infections were genetically unique. They just waited 90 days. The irony of this study is when they went looking for people hospitalized with COVID-like symptoms, they found over 6,000 who were vaccinated and only 1,000 who were unvaccinated and had a prior COVID infection. I thought they told us 99% of hospitalizations were unvaccinated. This 6-page paper has over 50 authors. That's an average of 9 authors per page. A half a dozen of them disclose conflicts of interest with pharma, but is working for CDC characterized as a conflict of interest. CDC Gov was given $1 billion from Congress to promote the vaccines. In their data, why does the number of vaccinated people hospitalized correlate negatively with time since vaccine? Could initial hospitalizations be due to vaccine adverse effects or due to a temporarily weakened immune system from the vaccine, or possibly just selection bias? Walensky's mischaracterization of the paper conceals that the CDC's original tortured summary exposes. This study is junk because it only considers those with prior infection who ended up in the hospital, not the ones who didn't. Natural immunity helps prevent hospitalizations. And then we had Andrew Bostom, MD, back this up. He said CDC MMWR scam research, purporting to show superiority of C19 vax-induced immunity versus natural immunity equals pruned data that ignore vaccine waning, as authors concede. MMWR is a non-peer-reviewed house organ of CDC which exists openly to promote CDC policy. It's junk. Just like that Lancet report they put out on hydroxychloroquine. It was never peer-reviewed. Scientists looked at it and said, can we see the peer-reviewed data to back all of this up? And then, what did they do with it? They retracted it. It was gone. What do you think is going to happen with this? The same exact thing, but the damage is already done, because what happens now? The fake news, they use their bullhorn and they say, look, at the headline. Now, people who don't do any research, don't really look at things, just believe the headline, they go along with it. This is why Trump needs to bring down the bullhorn. He knows this. Why do you think he made the announcement with his acquisition company, with Truth Social? Because he is getting ready to shut them down. Without the bullhorn, think about it. Without the bullhorn, which is the fake news and big tech, and they put this report out there, what would happen? Would anyone know? No, no one would know. Actually, people would call it out, and they would just remove it. But what they wanted was the initial reaction. Let's just put the headline out there. Who cares what happens later on? This is what Biden did with the mandate. This is how they do it. Remember, it's a corrupt system. And a corrupt system made up of criminals, they don't do things to be honest. They do things because they're criminals. Just like someone who murders someone who is a criminal. They don't say, oh, you know what, should I rob that bank or shouldn't I? Should I shoot that person and kill him or shouldn't I? They do it because they're criminals. They don't care about the laws. They don't care about the rules. They don't care about you or me or anyone. What we're looking at right now is a criminal syndicate. And you can see it now with clear day. It gets worse and worse every day. And this is why Trump and the Patriots, this is why they set it up this way. You can see it, you can taste it, you can feel it. Actually, it's making people very uncomfortable as they find out more. The uncomfortable feeling is that feeling inside that says this isn't right. And as that keeps building, you're saying, no, I am free, and I want to be free, and you are not going to do this. I am not complying. That is what is happening. This is what happened during the Revolutionary War. It built up. People, they tried to reason with the British government. They tried to say, you know, just, come on, let's talk about it. But the British, they didn't want to talk. They wanted control. Same thing in Germany, same thing everywhere. Same thing you see everywhere where there's a dictator. It's the same people doing the same thing. And that feeling inside of you that's making you feel uncomfortable, that's freedom. That's freedom saying, don't comply. I know it's going to be hard, but don't comply. And we see a lot of governors now, they are pushing back. Actually, Iowa Governor Kim Reynolds, she signed a law allowing workers to seek medical and religious exemptions from COVID-19. The state joined other states like Alaska, Arkansas, Missouri, Montana, Nebraska, New Hampshire, North Dakota, South Dakota, Texas, West Virginia, Wyoming to push back against the vaccine mandate to all employees. Actually, these states, first of all, most of them should just say, you know what, no vaccine mandates here, just like Florida, just like Texas. Now we also see this in South Dakota. Nome signs an order to protect state employees from Biden's vaccine mandate. They know it will be a complete and utter disaster. And let me give you an update about what happened with Biden's vaccine mandate. Praying Medic put this out on Telegram. It says the following. In the case where a judge has been asked to issue a temporary restraining order preventing the government from firing employees who are awaiting approval for their religious exemption request, the judge asked the government to put in writing its assurance that no plaintiff would be fired while waiting for the request to be approved. The government has responded, telling the judge they will not put such an assurance in writing. Now the judge can rule on the motion since the government has refused. I assume the plaintiffs will be granted their request. Yes, and this entire movement, everything that we're seeing, it is building across the country. We see out in Victoria, people are out there protesting against vaccine mandates. We see people out in Italy protesting against the health pass, which is the vaccine passport. We see again in France, people are out there protesting once again. And what's very interesting, a lawmaker in the EU pretty much summed it up. Because some of these individuals, they've gone through tyranny. They know what democracy is. And just listen to what he says, because this explains everything.
The difference between tyranny and democracy is very simple. When the government knows everything about you, that's tyranny. I know how it is to live in tyranny. When you know everything about your government, that's democracy.
So if you listen to what he said, he says when the government knows everything about you, this is tyranny. What do we see happening today? Do they want to track us, or are they tracking us? Are they listening to everything? Yes. When you know everything about the government, where they're completely transparent, you can see all documentation. This is democracy. You see, the people that have gone through it, they understand this. Now, it's the people of this country's turn to fight for freedom, to understand what tyranny looks like. Because we really never experienced it. We never grew up with it. Yes, our founding fathers have. They created this incredible documentation. And they told us we were going to have to fight for this once again. It wasn't against another nation. It was against an invisible enemy that took over our government, who's pretending to work for we the people. Remember, they use these politicians, blackmail. They control them. The real people, the puppet masters, are behind them. They needed these people because they needed everyone to think that, oh yes, these are the same as you, while controlling what they do. This is why they're puppets and puppet masters. It's almost like when the deep state took over Iraq, Libya, tried to do it with Syria, Ukraine. What did they do? They put in a puppet leader. Who controlled the puppet leader? The deep state players. The same thing happened here in the United States. The invisible enemy, they just put in a puppet leader. Biden, actually Trump, allowed this to happen. He knew what was going to happen because he didn't want a civil war. And the puppet masters are controlling him, making everyone think that, oh, Biden's going to be doing exactly what we want for the people. But we can see the opposite is happening right now. They're losing the narrative. People are waking up in droves. They can't stop it. Now, we know there's an election coming up in Virginia, and we can see that the deep state, they're already starting to construct their narrative. They're saying that ISIS might be a threat in this area. Now, I do believe if Youngkin is winning, McAuliffe and team, they're going to have to cheat. Are they going to shut everything down because of a threat from ISIS? Maybe, maybe not. It all depends on how much Youngkin is winning by. Because if it's by a lot, yes, they're going to use the false flag. They're already letting us know. Now, Representative Tim Rantham of Wisconsin, he is out there and he's saying we need to decertify. He said, I have continued to pursue truth and integrity of our 2020 general election. Recent developments have made it abundantly clear that the legislature should not have certified Wisconsin's 10 electoral ballots on December 14, 2020. The release of the bipartisan Legislative Audit Bureau report identified 44,272 voters, did not reflect proper voter identification, and also revealed the mass increase indefinitely confined voters from 4,505 in 2019 to 169,901 in 2020, tainted or fraudulent. These alone should be enough to question the legitimacy of the 2020 election results. After an additional review of all of this, I do believe that this should be decertified. And he says, therefore, I call upon the Wisconsin legislature to recognize the duty under Article 2, Section 1, Clause 2 of the United States Constitution, as well as the guidance provided by SS 6.841 to decertify Wisconsin's November 2020 election results by reclaiming its 10 electoral ballots. This is starting to spread. We're going to see this happen most likely in Arizona once Brnovich comes out and prosecutes people. Now, Trump, he put a statement out and he said the following. The Wall Street Journal just did a whitewash statement so incorrectly, almost incorrect, as their views on tariffs against China, a country that has been ripping off the United States for years, not even including the disaster of China virus, trying to justify the fraud of an election in Pennsylvania, but also saying even if we are right, Mr. Trump would be 2 states short of victory. Wrong. We were only talking about Pennsylvania. We weren't talking about the other states, which are also wrapped up in a large-scale fraud or election improprieties. As an example, take a look at what happened yesterday in Racine, Wisconsin, where a brave Patriot sheriff and his staff found fraud and criminal activity with regard to what took place with ballot harvesting and other things in nursing homes, which the Wisconsin Election Commission ordered to be done throughout the state. This is just the tip of the iceberg. There are many other improprieties in Wisconsin, including numerous laws broken. According to a new report from the Legislative Audit Bureau, who identified at least 44,272 illegal indefinitely confined votes who did not show voter ID, almost 7% of a sample of mail-in ballots were missing information required by law, and therefore should not have counted, which would amount to 32,431 illegal ballots. Just one example of fraud in Georgia, and there is so much more, is enough to swing the election as 43,907 ballots from Facebook-funded drop boxes violated chain of custody requirements and were thus illegally counted. In Michigan, even the rhinos in the state Senate confirmed roughly 45,000 ballots were delivered to the TCF Center in Detroit with no chain of custody at 3:30 and 4:30 a.m. on November 4th, and an estimated 289,866 absentee ballots were illegally sent to people who never requested them. Far more votes than needed to win the state. Also in Arizona, the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors were caught spreading outright lies about the audit and caught illegally deleting election data and records in defiance of a subpoena. They cannot explain away the findings of the Arizona audit, which include 23,000 mail-in ballots voted from prior addresses, 9,000 more ballots returned by voters than received, 284,000 ballot images were corrupt or missing, 17,000 duplicate ballot envelopes, 5,000 voters that potentially voted in multiple counties, 2,000 in-person votes who have moved out of Maricopa County, 2,000 votes moved out of state during 29-day period preceding election. Official results does not match who voted, off by at least 3,400 ballots. There is far too much corruption and irregularities in Arizona to put this in a letter. So we are attaching a copy of the just released and totally determinative report pertaining to the election audit. Not included in the audit was Pima County, which had multiple precincts with over 100% turnout for mail-in ballots, which is not possible or legal. These alone total 11,994 ballots, more than the election margin. Precincts with anomalous high turnout laughably went from 6% of Republican voting for Biden to 40% of Republican voting for Biden in mail-in ballots. No one in the fake news media pretends to believe this, so they just ignore the facts. It is all just part of the 2020 presidential election scam. We are not talking about one state, Pennsylvania. We are talking about numerous states, far more than is necessary to win, which we did, but which the fake news media and the Wall Street Journal refuse to talk about and are doing everything within their power to cover it up. They don't want the facts because if they had them, we win. The Wall Street Journal does not properly refute the numbers in Pennsylvania and doesn't even address the fact that there are still at least 120,000 excess voters not accounted for by the Pennsylvania Department of State, meaning more votes than voters. The thing the Wall Street Journal is right about is the statement that their attempts to censor Mr. Trump have done nothing to diminish his popularity, and our advice would be to examine Democrats' own standards after they fell so easily for false Russian collusion claims. The only problem is they didn't fall for it. The Democrats and crooked Hillary, with her now indicted lawyer Michael Sussman, illegally created the Russia and Ukraine scams, impeachment hoax number 1 and number 2, and many more. For whatever reason, the Wall Street Journal is doing a complete cover-up of the facts and figures behind the 2020 presidential election. After having dealt with them and others in the media for 4 years as president, I have lost complete confidence in them. They don't want the facts, but the people of our country and indeed the world understand what is going on. I'd like to conclude by thanking all of the millions of wonderful people who are working so hard against the radical left Democrats and the fake news media in order to show and prove this massive election fraud. Now think about it. He lost complete confidence in the fake news. Why do you think he's creating Truth Social? Why do you think he has an acquisition company? He's going to rip that bullhorn right out of their hands. And once that bullhorn is ripped away, they're in trouble. They won't be able to control anything. So what do? If you lose control, what's the alternative? Maybe a communication blackout? Very interesting. Now, we know that the World Series just happened. Trump attended the World Series, and he and the rest of the fans, they were all doing the chop. Now, what's very interesting about all this, he's like chopping away at the deep state, is that Dan Scavino, he put this out, and the video is 8 seconds long. So we're going to go to post 8, but first let me read what Praying Medic put out on Telegram. He says, why are people like Huma Abedin, who previously avoided the spotlight, suddenly telling their stories? Think about it. Christopher Steele came out. Huma Abedin is now coming out. doing an interview talking about everything that went on. We have also seen Huma with Clinton when Bill Clinton was sick. She follows her around everywhere on her book deal and everything like that. So let's go back to post 8. This is October 29, 2017. This is what, a 4-year delta. It says Huma, husband in jail. Hillary Clinton, Muslim Brotherhood, or child. What would you do? Kiss your child goodbye and leave without a mother or father for Clinton? Where is Huma today? Was she with Hillary Clinton on her book tour? RE Military Intelligence State Secrets. No FBI. POTUS installed his people within each top spot of each 3-letter agency except one. Good reason there are Admiral Rogers kickstarted this and scrubbed all POTUS nominations to verify oath. Do you think they aren't in control of those respective agencies? What is most valuable? Information. AG sessions on leakers. Fire or prosecute. Reorg is underway and happening. Do we see a reorg happening right now? We saw it back then, and I think we're still seeing it now. Think about all the elected people who are being removed, or they're deciding not to run again. Coincidence, Senate Republicans pushing for Fed judge confirmations last week? Why are the Senate Republicans dropping out? Not by choice, and we're offered a choice. Rest assured, they will vote pro-Trump. Very interesting. And remember, our voice has power. Trump and the Patriots, they know our voice has power. This is why Trump is setting up Truth Social. This is why he has the acquisition company. He's going to take the bullhorn and rip it out of the hands of the deep state players, because remember, they infiltrated these organizations, and give it to we the people. This is why they're so afraid of us. Think about what we've been doing without the bullhorn. Think about all the stories that they put out, and the people, the digital soldiers. Think about what happens when they get a hold of it and they show that these are fake. And people keep pushing and pushing. Where are people looking? Are they looking at the fake news, or are they looking at social media? Well, this is going to grow like we've never seen before. The deep state knows this. They can't stop it. They're going to try, but nothing will be able to stop this. Trump knew in the end, once he got all the digital soldiers, awakened the population, made the population see everything, it was time to give the voice back to we the people. And this is why I do believe General Flynn put this out on Telegram. If your voice had no power, they wouldn't try to silence you. Our voices have so much power, they're afraid. The roar of we the people scares them to death. And they know once we get the bullhorn, once we have a truth engine and our voice is being broadcast over it, they're done for. They know it. Trump knows, the Patriots know. We take full control.
Spin. Don't push. Spin. Slowly. So the reason why I heat the inside part, the reason why I heat that instead of heating the plastic, is as soon as you put a flame to that, you ruin the strength of that hose. But heating the plastic, you're just really softening it up, not really melting it or anything. And you push it on there easier. It's always best to just take them off and try and stick them on, put them on this way. Just take them off and try and stick them on, put them on this way as best. Or anything. You can push it on this side easier. Melting it or anything. And you can push it on those sides easier. instead of heating the plastic, because as soon as you put a flame to that, you ruin the strength of that hose. Softening it up, not really melting it or anything. And
Voilà.
This is so good. Oh man. Ah. Alright, so this shit is sick. Got the front cylinders done with the hoses. So I had to tap and dye this rack. Then I had to tap and dye this rack. These two extra, those lines, they're going to come down here, go this way, and then come here on pipes. And that'll be for quick connect. So yeah, I had to tap and dye this hole as well too. I'll upload the pictures. And this worked out so nice right here. So like these 4 hoses, obviously you see them come through here, and they run these 2 cylinders, and these 4 right here on the outside run up through the middle here, come up, and just like come right out there perfectly. And like this is great because when I get the proper splitters sent out to me, these 2 holes will drop down to 1, and these 2 hoses will drop down to 1 and split, right? So I'll have only 2 coming up here to power this, and then the other 2 I can use for my quick connect, right? And then the last one that I have that's gonna run up here will be for my auxiliary, right? It just turns out so freaking well. I'm very happy with this right now. Very happy. Good flex. Yes.